Hi, I'm Megan, working with horticulture.co.uk, and today I'm going to be giving you a tour of my carnivorous plant greenhouse. Greenhouse video, I'll be showing off different carnivorous plant genus that I own, along with sharing some information about them. This is a great time to be doing a greenhouse video as we are transitioning into their winter dormancy stage for all the temperate carnivorous plants in here, so it's great to highlight all the different aspects of your plants as they're going into their winter dormancy rest. First up in the collection is the Venus flytrap. The Venus flytrap is a monotypical genus, which means there is only one species relating to this genus, which is the Dianea muscipula. However, there is loads of different cultivars belonging to this genus, which have been a result of different hybrids that have been named over the years. You can get many that have intense colours, long petioles, serrated teeth and even fused teeth, as well as different colours, shapes and sizes. Obviously this time of year you can notice that many of them die back and have more of a clustered kind of approach, and sometimes they will even lose their traits. However, the ones that are still actively growing, you can see the different insertion of the teeth. Some of them have some really nice bright colours with some very little teeth, as you can see here, and some of them are even fused, such as this fused tooth here, which has a very fused teeth without many singular teeth at all. And obviously as we go through, you notice that many of them have started to die back and have this kind of downward clustered approach. And this is how they will stay dormant throughout the year. These will stay outside in the greenhouse, which is unheated year round, and they will kind of look quite messy and flat to the ground during this period of time, and then resume growing in about March next year. Next up in the collection we have Drosera, also known as Sundews. These beautiful sticky plants have mucilage at the end of their tentacles, which capture and digest prey. Most of the sundews will have the ability to curl up around their prey before digesting it with the digestive enzymes. They come in a range of tropical, subtropical and even temperate species, and they sparkle, especially when the sun is on them. More sunlight means they have more intense colour and more dew. Subtropical species such as Drosera capensis, Aliciae, and even some of the fun hybrids that you've got here with the wider leaves are really nice ones that can be either kept in the greenhouse unheated year round, or are quite happily sat on a windowsill inside. There is tropical species like this Drosera adelae, which will be shortly coming in for the winter, as this one is a tropical and doesn't really like the temperature drop in the winter. However, it's a very hardy and resilient grower, so doesn't mind it if you do miss the first couple of colder days. And finally, you have your temperate species of Drosera, which die down to a hibernaculum in winter. As you can see, this Drosera foliformis has already died back, which is basically a green version similar to this one here with the very long leaves, and then it will eventually die back to ground level and stay as this fuzzy kind of mass at the bottom, and this is kind of how they preserve their energy and stay dormant for the winter time. Others, such as this Drosera ibernata, will be cut back completely to ground level in the winter time, and there will be no top growth. But these are very hardy plants and can be kept either outside or in the greenhouse year round. Whilst on the subject of Drosera, I thought it would be worth mentioning the pygmy sundews, as these subtropical sundews are not like any of the others. These beautiful little plants, hence the name pygmy, are very small and often range from anywhere from a couple of millimetres across, which makes them quite indistinguishable in a pot, all the way up to 5 centimetres in diameter, making them some of the smallest species of Drosera that there is. They also come in a range of lovely colours with their foliage, as you can see, from the oranges, even pinks and even reds. And these beautiful plants produce some of the most striking flowers that I've ever seen, which are quite small but also come in some really vibrant colorations. In the cooler periods of the autumn-winter time, and when the light is shorter, you often see these little buds in the centre of their crowns, known as gamiae. This gamiae is like a seed and can be plucked from the centre of the plant and sown straight onto carnivorous plant compost mixes, and within a couple of weeks you'll start seeing little versions of the adult plants. Next in the collection we have the Cephalotus follicularis, which is also known as the Albany pitcher plant, These beautiful little plants produce thimble-like pictures at the end of a little mass of non-carnivorous leaves, which they can often have smaller traps and larger traps growing at the same time, and their leaves can either range to having quite a lot or not too little at all. They produce really nice vibrant colours, but some can also be found more green in colour, and some could be a lot larger and darker. They like a well-draining mix with a bit more perlite, sand and even grit added to it. And these plants can be a little bit finicky, so they're one of the ones that you might require a little bit more patience with, but are happily to be grown in an unheated greenhouse next to your other carnivorous plants, or even in a conservatory or inside your home. Sarracenia make up the most of my collection, as they are my second favourite genus, and I love to cross-pollinate them to make my own hybrids. I have grown many from seeds and have several generations, which I've got seedlings just down here. And these all range from 1-year-olds up until 5-year-olds, as you can see here. These white ones at the back are my 5-year-old hybrids, which I have grown from seed, and I like to do this with each generation. I also like collecting the rarer hybrids that you can see, as well as cultivars and different species. There are 8 different species of Sarracenia, ranging from your typical flavas and leucophyllus, which you see, all the way into your alatas and rubras, which are a little bit more unique. So as we scan through, you'll probably notice that there's a lot of whites at the moment. This time of year is the best for the leucophyllus, also known as your white pitcher plants. And they come in a range of different shades of white. So you get ones with more heavier veining, some with like nice light pink veining, some that are all white and green only with no red pigmentation in at all. Some of them are pretty tall and have quirky little traits. This one's got a nice wider tube, as well as this more rarer Sarracenia, which has a more bulbous trap with a quirky lid and a pink rim. Even going down into some of my smaller ones, you've got more pure whites, some with little to no veining. As you can see from this one here, it has little veining at all, making it a very showy white picture. And you even get some darker coloration, like this night sky here, which has kind of got more of a darky green white combination going on, which looks pretty good, as well as your nice pinks and pubescent pictures, which means it's got a fuzzy feel to the outer side of the picture. Many of the other species of Sarracenia at this time of year will start dying back, which you can identify this by the curling of the lid, which goes brown and crispy, and eventually the entire picture will brown off or go yellow. And then once it dies all the way down to the base of where the rhizome is, you cut it back. During this time of year as well, you'll also notice a lot of these, which are non-carnivorous leaves known as phyllodia. And these just simply help your plant photosynthesize over the winter. However, you can cut them off if you wish to tidy it up a bit more, or you can keep them on and cut them up back in spring. It's personal preference at the end of the day. Sarracenia are one of the coolest ones to grow, and they're also perfect for an unheated greenhouse, as they come in so many different shapes, sizes, colours. You even get some that are really tall in size. So this here is my 3-foot Brooks hybrid, which you can see is starting to die off, but it's still a stunning showpiece nonetheless. So I definitely recommend Sarracenia for anybody growing in an unheated greenhouse, or even outside in a bog barrel, as they carry a lot of potential, personality, and obviously look great as a showpiece. Next up we have the Darlingtonia, also known as the Cobra Lily due to its snake-like looking pictures and the little red tongues that it has at the front of the picture, almost giving that snake-like appearance. These are very similar care like to Sarracenia, as in they can be kept in an unheated greenhouse or outside year round due to their hardiness, and they have trumpet-like pictures but capture the prey underneath where this tongue is, which is quite hard to show on a camera here, but you can just about see a little hole under there, which is where the flies will enter and then get stuck in this tubular picture here. These plants can grow relatively tall. These have obviously died back a little bit now for the winter, and they're also great dividers. So this plant kind of produces plants from like stolon runners, and you'll get multiple little ones which can be divided out of the pot. These are really great and fascinating plants as well due to the windows, which are these like white little flectors on their pictures, and they're just a really fun one to grow, especially when you have a nice large clump which can get quite big in the summer growing season. Utricularia, or commonly known as bladderworts, are up next, and these are truly fascinating carnivorous plants as they capture their prey under the surface of the soil. On the surface of the soil we'll often see clusters of little flowers, and these can range in colour and even shape. As you can see from Utricularia sandersonii, which has rabbit-like looking flowers, and this microlax over here, which has more of a vibrant purple flower, but you can see the stems which start to form. They often flower in the late summer, however you can get some that flower at different times of the year, such as this Utricularia alpina, which has yet to flower. As well as the flowers, you'll also see these leaves on the surface of the soil, which are also part of the plant. Some of them are larger, like this Utricularia alpina, and some of them are quite small and less conspicuous, like these two here. And that basically marks where the plant is. However, under the soil is where all the action happens, and they have little stem-like roots which has bladders at the fibrous hairs on them. And these bladders will basically capture any swimming or smaller insects which are underneath the soil. Next up, I have Pinguicula, known as the butterwort, due to the greasy feel on their leaves. I have two different types to show off here. The first one, which is mounted on this lava rock, are Mexican Pinguicula. These are not as hardy and they can't tolerate the frosts, so this rock will shortly be brought in for the winter time. However, I can happily grow these outside in the greenhouse in a more bright area, as this promotes their coloration and also helps with their growth and even captures insects out here during the summer time. The next type that I've got is the temperate Pinguicula, which can be kept in an unheated greenhouse or outside year round, especially in the UK. These ones are native to Ireland, so they can tolerate a lot of the cold. They're beautiful lime green leaves, and around this time of year they'll start dying off. They will die back to this hibernaculum, which you can see here, which is a winter resting bud, and they will stay as this bud throughout the entire winter time. And at the base of the bud that you will often find gamiae, which is a cellular little organism which you can pluck from the bottom of that plant, sow onto the surface of some peat and perlite carnivorous plant mix, and it will grow you some brand new plants. I've got a couple more unusual carnivorous plants which are less likely to be in many people's collections that I'd also like to show off whilst I'm doing the collection tour. And this one is a Drosophyllum lustanicum, also known as the Dewy Pine. And this is one of the most interesting and unusual carnivorous plants due to it not being native to boglands, and is actually native to Portugal and grows in more of a drier environment. So unlike most carnivorous plants which prefer boggy kind of conditions, this one has really dry summers with little to no rainfall, so it can happily be grown in a terracotta pot and in a very loose dry mix. So this one is mainly in a mix of sand and grit rather than more of a peat based mix. These are notoriously hard to propagate and can mainly only be grown from seed due to them being unable to be moved without them dying off. This is the only one in my collection that I managed to grow from seed, but is an absolute stunner and obviously gets to a really incredible size too. The last one I wish to show off is the Roridula, due to its fascinating way on how it captures insects. So these plants are incredibly sticky, and they have very fine looking like hairs on the end of their leaves which capture insects. However, like Sundews, they don't digest their insects on their leaves. They have the help of the symbiotic relationship of the assassin bug, which simply will eat the insects which are stuck on the leaves, as the assassin bug cannot be stuck itself to the leaves, and the waste from the assassin bug then is obviously deposited onto the leaves, and this is what the plant takes up. So it is a result of this symbiotic relationship which makes this plant incredibly fascinating and also a really great and unique one to own in a collection. As you can see, I have many different carnivorous plant genus within my collection. Many of them I keep out here year round. The versatility between so many different types under the same roof and having very similar conditions means I have little worry when it comes to the winter time and only needing to bring in a couple of plants. I have also not shown a couple of plants in this video, which is the Helianthora, known as the sun pitcher, and then the Pemphes, also known as the tropical pitcher plant. Due to the high humidity needs and their lack of resilience to the cold, I thought it would be best to keep them inside for today's video, but are also great additions to the collection. This is the time of year that many growers will be dividing and propagating their carnivorous plants, as the best time to do this is in their winter dormancy period, which means it's a great time for all types of growers to be stocking up on their carnivorous plants.